There's an outpouring of abundance, New doors have been opened. The land, it is green. A new grace has been released. The glory of the latter is greater than the former. The blessing is here. It's all here. Lift up your hands, come on. The glory of the latter is greater than the former. The blessing is here. It's all here. All here. There's an overflow. Abundance of favor.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. You are welcome to the last session for today. It's been an amazing time at the Winning in Parenting Conference. It has been a moment of transformation. It has been loads upon loads of light bulb moments, amazing moments or aha moments. All right. And I just want to thank God for what He's doing through this platform in the lives of parents. Thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here again this evening. We've had two sessions, earlier, and this is the last session for tonight. And trust me, it's going to be really, really expository. Father, we thank you for this opportunity that you have given to us. We ask, oh God, that you would speak your word to every parent listening right now in the name of Jesus. We ask that you would take control of everything going on here in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you so much. Our guest is here already, and I am going to play his profile before I bring him in. I want you to understand that this is not about, I'm raising my children in a Christian home. I don't do drugs or anything. Let us understand something tonight. The kind of children that we are raising, right, and not the kind of children that were raised years ago. The world in which we were raised does not exist anymore, and we need to up our game. We need to be up to date with everything going on. I mean, we see all the things children are messing themselves up with today, and so this knowledge that is coming our way is one that is highly needed. So I don't want you to be put off with the topic and you're like, drugs, what's my own? My children can never do drugs. Yes, that's our prayer, but we need to be informed because ignorance is not an excuse. And I'm so glad that we're all here, to learn again. So I'm just going to put up the profile of our guest before I bring him in. David Folaranmi is an economist and a public servant, but his interest lies in mental health and behavioral changes with emphasis on addiction. He is a trained UNODC educator and has had further trainings with WHO, EU, Colombo Drug Advisory Program, Substance Use Disorder Prevention and Treatment and Care. Mr. Folaranmi has been invited by the NDLEA on several occasions to speak on his past struggles with substance abuse, his recovery process, and the work he is doing now to help others struggling with addiction. The most recent of his invitation was at an event organized by the NDLEA to commemorate the June 26th International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, which held at the Presidential Villa on the 27th of June 2022. David Folaranmi is the project director of the Live Free Initiative, which is an arm of the David Folaranmi Foundation that seeks to prevent substance use among the youth in the society through sensitization, enlightenment, and education. Mr. Folaranmi is the Executive Director of the Live Free Renewal Center, a drug and alcohol rehabilitation center in Enugu State. A recipient of several awards home and abroad for his contribution to the eradication of drug abuse in Nigeria, Mr. Folaranmi is a member of International Society of Substance Use Professionals, Nigeria chapter, Community Intervention Network for Drugs, Nigerian chapter, Association of Advocates Against Alcohol Harm in Nigeria, and he is an ambassador for the drug-free world in Nigeria. Mr. Folaranmi is happily married and the union is blessed with two beautiful daughters. David Folaranmi. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us this evening. It's such a delight to have you here. Mr. David is someone that I admire, from behind the scene. I once listened to him and I was greatly inspired. His story is an inspiration, but I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to let him go right into the business for tonight. But trust me, he is a seasoned expert and he's going to be doing a fantastic job, exposing us to what we need to know and understand as parents when it comes to drug abuse. Thank you so much, sir. We're so honored to have you with us. So I'm just going to leave you in the studio so you can go ahead to do your thing.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I think for a bit you froze there, Auntie Sandra.
Oh.
So I hope, yes. So I hope everybody can hear me now.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Good evening, everybody. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to be in the midst of parents who are ready to win in their journey of parenting. And when I got the letter from our convener to speak on drug use among our youth at this year's Winning Parenting Conference, I was elated because I understood that she understands the need to include substance use among the youth, among the teenagers, in any given parenting conference right now. When you look through the list of very seasoned speakers who our convener has put together, discussing issues, relevant issues in various fields of life, and you omit substance use among the teenagers now, then all of what those people, those amazing speakers have come to deliver might just go to waste if any of our teenagers fall into the prey of drug abuse and addiction. So I want to thank you for this inclusiveness. It's very important in our day and time. In my line of work, every day I receive calls from frantic parents desperately in need of help for their children who are suffering from substance use disorder. And by substance use disorder, we mean drug abuse and addiction. However, we're trying to reduce the stigma associated with this illness, and we decide as professionals, we all should call it substance misuse or substance use disorder. So I'm going to be talking to all of us here present today as professionals, not just as parents, but as professionals who will take the message of drug abuse and addiction out there, not just to our immediate families, but to the society at large, in everywhere we find ourselves. The Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. My people perish for lack of knowledge. Not for lack of prayers, not for lack of willpower, not for lack of sympathy, but my people perish for lack of knowledge. And which is why we are privileged to be at this conference to get knowledge from an array of speakers. I looked at the speakers. I've seen Dr. Abiri, I've seen Coach Wendy, I've seen Uncle Sele. These are people who are oracles in their fields of endeavors. And then we have been put together to impact knowledge on parents gathered here today. Let it count. Please let it count. Bishop Oyedepo will say, there's no mountain anywhere. Every man's mountain is his or her ignorance. There is no mountain anywhere. Every man's mountain is his or her ignorance. So very quickly, we'll go into the business of today. Parenting and drug abuse, contemporary approaches for prevention. So what I'm here to do today is to teach you contemporary means, evidence-based means to prevent our kids, our teenagers, our young adults, adolescents from falling prey to substance use in our society today. Now, I'll give you a story because I like to tell stories to participants or my audience just to bring my points home. A woman called me a few months ago and said, sir, I need help. And I said, what is the problem? She said her daughter has been acting funny, and has even left school. And so she had to take leave from work, an extended leave, to stay at home with her. And for the last 3 months, this daughter has been indoors, has not had the opportunity to go out, but yet this daughter keeps acting in a strange manner. So she said, I spoke to somebody, and the person said, call Mr. Folaranmi. It might be a drug problem. And then the mother said, no, it can't be a drug problem because I've been with this girl for 3 months and she's been indoors. She has not had a chance to go anywhere. So how then would she have had access to drugs? So when she was telling me all of this, fortunately, it was in the same city where I was. So I said, okay, I will come and see her. So we got talking, and I tried to understand the symptoms, the telltale signs that the mother had observed in her daughter. And then everything she said boiled down to this girl using drugs. But then how was she getting the drugs? It's just her and the mother at home. She wasn't going anywhere. So I asked the mother, please tell me the routine, the daily routine of this young girl. So she told me how she would wake up, do some house chores, and at some point she'll make an order for cakes, muffins. And I said, okay, that's where it is. So while we were there, a delivery man came. He came to deliver a box of cakes to this young girl. And I told the mother, hold it, don't give it to her yet. Because usually the mother will pick it from the door and take it to the girl in the room. I said, don't give it to her yet. Let's investigate the contents of this box. And when you open it, just looking at it, all you're going to see is 6 lovely decorated cakes, nothing else. So I asked for a knife, and then I just started to insert the knife in each of the muffins. And then when I got to one, I felt an obstruction. We opened it up, and we found drugs that were hidden in that particular cake. Now, so this girl was under the watchful eyes of her mother, under her mother's roof, and she found a way to continue using substances without the mother even knowing. So when we say that drug use is not something that is close to my family. We need to give it a rethink. Yes, that's our prayer, but you must remember that the people who are pushing the use of drugs out there, the criminals, are coming up with ingenious methods every day to get hold of our children. As Coach Wendy will say, God forbid, is not a parenting skill. So I'm very sure when I said what I said, some of us would have said, God forbid, it cannot be my child. It cannot be my son. It cannot be my daughter. I say an amen to that. However, we must understand prevention or preventive methods to make sure they don't fall prey of these vices. Now, very quickly, I'm going to take you through a crash course. As usual, I'm giving very little time again, so I can't begin to share my screen, and I'm just going to miss out on a lot of things. So please just follow me as quickly as possible and try to get everything you can. I'm sure I'll have time to take your questions. So this course is going to provide you with information that has been gathered over 20 years of accurate research on drug abuse and its consequences. Now, mind you, the prevalence of drug use in Nigeria is one of the highest in the world. And then we now have 1 in 4 of every drug user as a female. So if you're still thinking that this is a male-dominated social vice, you must begin to rethink. I was discussing with a fellow professional earlier today, and I said, at some point, it was 1 in 13 drug users that was a lady. Then it became 1 in 9, then 1 in 6, and then 1 in 4 drug users who is a lady. And then it will also interest you to know that among the teenagers, Nigeria ranks as number 1 teenage use of marijuana in the entire Africa. Teenage use of marijuana in the entire Africa, our dear country, Nigeria, ranks as number 1. So you see, there's actually a drug culture in the country. And just like I explained to you, you might not know it as a parent. You might not understand what is happening, which is why, like our convener Sandra was saying, the parenting skills you learned or you were brought up with is outdated. You must up your game to be a step ahead of your teenagers. If not, these things will happen right underneath your noses and you will be none the wiser. Now, my story is unique. My story is a testimony of how God saved me from 7 years of chronic drug use. I was born into a Christian home. You know, right from birth, my mom would always take me to church. I was dedicated by Bishop Oyedepo himself. You know, and then I grew up in the church, went to mission primary schools, mission secondary schools, and I went to Covenant University. Now, this was my mother's idea of parenting. You know, let's put this child in Christian environments so that he will be shielded from social vices. But how wrong she was. You know, now that was what she knew how to do, but that wasn't enough. And that's the mistake some parents are still making today. Let us take our children to church. Let us make sure they're always in church. Let's get a driver to take them to school in a Christian school and bring them back home, and they are going to be safe. These social vices have infiltrated the church. They are everywhere now. Ironically, it was on the grounds of Covenant University that I had my first exposure to drug use. So you see where the irony is. It's not where you take your children to or your teenagers to, it's what you instill in them that will count on the day of reckoning. So every parent that is here this evening is part of a rapidly growing global community of substance use professionals. So congratulations to every one of you. Now, in the course of my teaching, I'll still interject some parts of my story, but I don't want us to miss out on the most important bit, which is not my story, but how to prevent your children, your teenagers from getting involved with drug use. The primary objective of substance use prevention is to help people, particularly young people, avoid or delay initiation into the use of psychoactive substances, or if they've already started, to avoid the development into disorders. So the reason we are here today is to teach you, is to equip you with knowledge that will prevent our children or children around us. I always tell people it's not just about our own children. If your neighbor's child is using and you understand the telltale signs and you can nip it in the bud early enough, you are doing yourself a favor. Because if you don't help to stop that neighbor's child from using, he's going to influence your own child. The general aim of substance use prevention is much broader than just stopping our teenagers from getting involved in drug use. The most important thing is to help them lead fruitful lives and let them be contributing members to their community and the society at large. Now, mechanisms for negative behaviors. Now, let's go quickly. We're going to run through this very, very quickly. Mechanisms for negative behaviors. Substance use or misuse is a negative behavior. So what will cause a child or a teenager to start abusing substances? Now, we have two major parts. Number one is failed socialization, and number two is poor decision-making skills. As parents, we must understand that socialization is key. When a child is born, he's born as a clean slate, an empty page, a new book. But then as he or she grows up, he begins to interact with his community. And then we have what we call socializing agents. These include his parents, his teachers, his peers, his religious inclination, his economic and political organizations, virtual agents such as mass media. So all of these social agents begin to influence that child. Now, let me tell you, every parent seated here today, you are not solely responsible for the outcome of your child. And quote me anywhere. You are not solely responsible for the outcome, the behavioral outcome of your child, because you're not going to be with that child 24 hours, 7 days of the week. They are going to socialize. They are going to mix with other people. They are going to go to school. They are going to meet with their teachers. They are going to meet with their peers. They are going to go to church. They are going to use social media. And all of these things will contribute to building their social profile. Recent results of research into neurobiology and genetics indicate the level of development competencies that children achieve is related to their susceptibility or vulnerability to the engagement in these behaviors. Such engagement is the result of an interaction between an individual volunteer and, quote and unquote, that protection and environmental influences. Children may be vulnerable, but if they are raised in warm, loving families with caregivers who provide appropriate socialization, example, good parenting, which is why we're here, and supervision, they will be protected from engaging in behaviors that are potentially harmful, including substance abuse. Everything I just said now is, when a child is born, once again, he or she, when they grow up, starts to interact with other social agents, and they tend to engage in certain behaviors that are bad. However, if they are raised in a warm, loving family with parents who provide appropriate socialization, that's good parenting and supervision, they will be protected from engaging in behaviors that are harmful, and this includes substance abuse. Now, let's go to introduction to child development. Now, every one of us here is a professional, like I said, so I'm not just here to entertain you or tell you stories. I'm here to impact you with knowledge that will change the way you view parenting. And at the end of the day, this knowledge is going to help you prevent your children from getting involved with drug use or addiction. Child development encompasses how children think and grow from birth through adolescence. Developmental domains include cognitive and intellect, physical, social, and emotional. Now, the area of the brain that controls executive function, including weighing long-term consequences and controlling impulses is among the last to fully mature. Sometimes that part of the brain does not mature till the child is 20 years of age, which is why parents and families must nurture and keep their children safe, instill social and emotional regulatory skills, teach children about sharing and reciprocity, reinforce accepted norms of your home, values and age, gender-specific behaviors, and of the community or society. So the part of our brains that helps to control long-term, that helps to weigh long-term consequences and controlling impulses, sometimes does not develop till the child is 20, which is why you find out that teenagers can be very impulsive and do things, and it looks as if, what are you doing? Are you not thinking? A teenager just decides to go and tattoo something across his chest, a tattoo that is not going to be there for the rest of his life. He's not thinking about the long-term consequences. It's no fault of his. The part of his brain that is supposed to help him weigh the consequences of his actions does not develop until he's 20, which is why, as a parent, you must supervise your teenagers up until the point in time when you know they can make proper decisions after they have weighed the long-term consequences. How can parents address the need for competence and self-worth of their children? Your children have a need for relatedness. Your children have a need for affiliation. There's a need for approval. There's a need for achievement. There's a need for competence and self-worth. Now, I'm just giving you 4 important needs that our children will have. And when these needs are not met, there is a large chance, a very, very huge chance that they might delve into substance use and eventually addiction. Okay, let's go quickly. Developmental periods and skills. So middle childhood, developmental skills of middle childhood children. So let's say age 6 to 11. As parents, you must understand that, okay, at this particular age, children can venture into drug use out of curiosity. So what do? Do you just leave it to chance? Do you just say, no, don't take marijuana, no, don't smoke cigarettes, no, don't use cocaine? These things are even in our curriculum in schools now. So they know these things. However, much more deeper than just telling them, don't smoke cigarettes, don't drink alcohol. You actually need to understand their developmental periods and instill in them skills that are relevant for that age range. Okay, I have to skip a lot. So we also have developmental skills that are relevant for middle-aged children, and then when they get to their adolescent level. Okay, substance use prevention supports appropriate child development. Emphasis the substance use prevention strategies places on developing children and youth with, number 1, strong bonds to their school. Number 2, prosocial behaviors. Number 3, effective communication skills. Number 4, appropriate assertiveness skills. Number 5, the ability to work together in groups. Number 6, the ability to control their impulses and make effective, thoughtful decisions based on a consideration of alternatives and their likely consequences. So what am I saying? When we teach these life skills, these relevant life skills, it aids a child's development and helps them to avoid substance use disorder. So drug abuse prevention has gone past the stage of just saying, don't take cocaine, don't take marijuana, don't take cigarettes, don't take this, don't take that. So some of these children know the consequences of some of these things even more than you do. Some of them even know the consequences of using these drugs more than some of us do. So we must instill in them relevant life and social skills that will help them not only in their developmental process, but also in their in a bid to avoid falling into the prey of drug abuse and drug addiction. So I gave you some examples. Effective communication skills, very important. Appropriate assertiveness skills. Your child should be assertive. Some of us are raising children that are not assertive. They can't say something and stick to it and be by it. Your child must be assertive. They should be able to work together in groups and not isolated. They should be able to control their impulses. It's very important. They should learn pro-social behavior. They should learn problem-solving skills. These are some very important life skills that will help to guard our children from falling prey to drug use. Now, what are some of the excuse me, I have to skip a lot. What are some of the risk factors, predisposing factors, and pre-existing factors that can cause a child to venture into drug use? Now, listen, every time we talk about drug use prevention, we must discuss risk factors. We must discuss pre-existing factors. We must discuss predisposing factors. What are these? These are factors out of the reach of, out of the control of your children that makes them susceptible to wanting to try to use drugs. Let me break that down a bit. There are certain factors that are already on ground, already in place, that when a child is born into an environment with those factors, that child is likely to use drugs. So as parents, we must understand these predisposing factors, because if these predisposing factors exist around you, you must pay more attention to the development of your children. If not, they might, just might, venture into drug use. What are some of these predisposing factors? Number one, genetic predisposition. Did you ever know that addiction can be passed on from one generation to another? I have seen it time and time and time again. The grandfather, alcoholic. The father, alcoholic. The uncles, alcoholic. The child, alcoholic. So when you notice that this predisposing factor exists in your family, you must pay more attention to the development of your children to guard them against this using drugs. Number two, exposure to drugs and other substances. So when a child is born in an environment where substances are always used, where it is allowed, some people say it is culture, you live on a street where it's sold openly, the child's mind, remember I told you the child is a clean slate, so the child's mind starts, this thing starts creating an impression, curiosity begins to set in. This is of no fault of the child. You have to guide that child away from these things, so the child does not go to experiment with them. Challenging temperament, conduct disorder. Some of us don't even know the temperaments of our children. I put it to you, some people here do not know the temperaments of their children. In my brief profile that was read, it was accordingly. I must understand the psychological makeup of each of my daughters and relate to them accordingly. Poor impulse and self-control, aggression and antisocial behavior, sensation seeking. Now, sensation seeking. I have a 2-year-old daughter. She's not yet 2, she'll be 2 in 2 weeks. Now, my daughter loves anything that is sensation driven. So if you put my daughter on the very highest merry-go-round, she's not going to be scared. No matter how high I throw her up, she's not going to be scared. She lives for those kind of moments. She loves sensation. So do you realize that a child like that, I must pay more attention to the development of that child, because by nature, we can't question God. That's how God made her. By her psychological makeup, she's susceptible to wanting to try dangerous behaviors, including drug use. So I have to pay more attention to that child as she is growing up, instilling in her relevant social and life skills to navigate her away from the cost of trying these things. All of that sensation seeking must be channeled into something more profitable. So I say, okay, you like to jump, you like to do this, I do that. Why don't I put her in gymnastic class? Why don't I teach her swimming? Why don't I teach her tennis? Something that can be more thrilling and less dangerous. So we also have predisposing factors as a family in the family, unresponsive or permissive parenting. Unresponsive or permissive parenting. Some of us are permissive parents. It is bad. Parental use of substances, that's a risk factor for children. You live and then your husband is using drinking alcohol, and then you think it's okay, or your wife is using alcohol and you think it's okay that your children are not going to just take it. That's a risk factor that can make a child to eventually start using substances. Another one is low parenting warmth. There's no warmth, there's no love, there's no tenderness, there's no care in the home. This can make a child susceptible to wanting to use drugs. Tolerance of substance abuse. Some parents, they tolerate it. Some of them say, okay, it's allowed in our community, in our, what's it called now? In our ethnicity, we drink, we just drink a little. I mean, and then when it spirals out of control, you start calling me at weird hours of the night and wanting me to wave a magic wand, and then the addiction is just going to stop. When it was your fault, it grew right underneath your nose. No, it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. Inadequate monitoring. Now I'm talking to the parents here. These are faults of parents that children get into addiction and drug abuse. Unresponsive or permissive parenting, parental use of substances, low parenting warmth, tolerance of substance use, and inadequate monitoring. How do you have a child and you don't monitor his or her activities? How do you have a child that goes to school and comes back and you don't know what is in his pocket or in a school bag? How do you have a child and you don't know what site the child is going to on his or her phone? How do you have a child and you don't monitor the development of that child? You're already failing, and it's a recipe for disaster. Because when you start doing this at a young age, of when the children are young, and you think there is no need for you to monitor them because they are children, it will get to a time when you will want to monitor them and you will not be able to do it. And then we start looking for one coach after the other, one portion in the name of Jesus. So I'm rushing this so I can be stopped in the next few minutes. Cleaning fluids, misuse and diversion of prescribed controlled substances, including stimulants, depressants, opioids, and analgesics. Other non-conventional drugs include gutter smoking. So this is more popular in the far north. You have children who inhale gutter, inhale pit latrine. And just last week, I was in a conference and somebody was telling me that someone just called him that his nephew was injecting kerosene. His nephew was injecting kerosene. So you see, these are non-conventional drugs that children use. Now, progression of substance use. Some children as young as 7 to 8 years old experiment with substances. Now, this usually includes, but it's not limited to, harmful household products, including petrol. So those of us that have generators close to the house and you buy gallons of petrol and you keep it there, you always find that your child is always going there. You don't know what to do. He's getting high. There's a place in Kaduna in Banawa where they have a lot of furniture. And then it occurred to me that a lot of students used to always gather there. They were sniffing the paint thinner that was used to spray on the plywood in that furniture area. So those children were getting high. They will walk there after school and start inhaling these substances. We must understand that this is where it starts. Some children will roll empty paper and light it with matches, and that is where it begins. And then other drugs they use at this age include tobacco and alcohol. The earlier children initiate the use, the more likely they are to use in life and then become problematic users. Our understanding of why children progress from experiment to substance use as others is not limited. So why doesn't everyone who tries substance use continue to use and become addicted? Now that's a question I must imagine is on the lips of many parents. Why is it that not everybody? I have people that will say, okay, my brother was using, but he stopped. Okay, this person was using, but he stopped. So why can't you stop? Right? Why can't you stop? We all did this in secondary school. We all did this in university. Why is your own different? People are created differently. We all have different thresholds. We all have a separate psychological build, and this accounts for the fact that some people will try it and never be able to stop, while some others will try it and be able to stop. So you can't tell who will stop and who will not stop. So the best thing to do is to prevent it from starting in the first place. What works for substance prevention? So what works for substance use prevention? In children, you must teach self-control. We talked about life skills. Now you must teach self-control, emotional awareness, communication, problem-solving skills. I tell you something, one of the most prominent reasons people use substances is because they have a problem. And when they have a problem, they don't know how to solve it. So somebody says, why don't you try a joint of marijuana? Why don't you try a gram of cocaine? Because it's going to solve your problem. And then you just end up creating two separate and worse problems for yourself. Another reason people engage in substance use disorder is because they lack purpose, or they lack a clear understanding of their purpose, or they're not working in it. Now, as low as the ages of your children can be, you must start. It's your responsibility, parents. You must start praying. Sit down, kneel down, pray to God. Show me what it is you have created this my son or my daughter for. And now guide your children to walk in the light of that purpose. Because when someone does not know his or her purpose on earth, he or she will be swayed. He or she will be diverted by earthly pleasures. And by earthly pleasures, I mean things like addiction, things like sexual immorality, things like fraud. Certain people go into fraud not because they need the money. They really do not need the money. It is because they do not know what they are doing on earth. I know many rich people, they're from rich families, and then they still go into fraud. Why? They lack purpose. They lack purpose. So teach your children problem-solving skills and teach them to understand the place of purpose. Okay, so we're just going to rush this. Okay, so what doesn't work? Now, we've talked about a lot of things that work. Now, what doesn't work in prevention? What does not work in prevention? Say with me, fear tactics. Wherever you are, seated wherever you are, in the comfort of your house, say fear tactics. Now, let me give you an example. At the back of every pack of cigarettes, I have one there. I should have shown you people. Of course, it's not for me. It's part of my teaching materials. So at the back of every cigarette, you have smokers are liable to die. Have you asked yourself, why do people still buy it, even though it is written there? And now they just don't write it. They put graphic images of lungs, of liver that are burnt, yet people don't buy it. So fear tactics does not work. So please do not go and try to scare your child. That, okay, Uncle David has spoken to us today. If you use drugs, you are going to die. If it is a lie, it's not going to work. It's not. Please, if you have been doing it, desist from doing it. It does not work. Non-interactive methods such as lecturing. When you are teaching your children, don't now tell them, sit down, all of you sit down, and start teaching them like a lecturer on the effects of drug use in the society. It does not work. Have an interaction with them. Have an interaction with them. Pick their brains. Look into their eyes. Talk to them about substance use, and then that will also help you. Focusing on building self-esteem only. It's great for your children to have good self-esteem, but don't make that just the focus of your drug abuse prevention talk to them. Don't make them feel like if they use drugs, they are going to have such a low self-esteem. They are going to be degenerate. No. You are going to push them to actually going to try to do it. Don't exaggerate or misinterpret the dangers of substance use. That's also scare tactics. Do not do that, and don't give frightening accounts of people that have gone into it and have died. That does not work. So we must be abreast of methods of drug abuse prevention that does not work. So in summary here, it is important that you know that in preventing drug abuse among our children, we must teach them relevant life skills. Relevant life skills to include communication skills, goal setting, time management. Some of our children can't manage time. And when you can't manage time, you use the time for bad things. You can't use your time for good things. You use it for bad things. So time management. As parents, we should be able to manage our time. Some of us as parents are on social media, from Instagram to Facebook, and our children are watching us. You come home, you're on the internet from. I have a friend in the UK. She taught me something. It's so difficult to do, but I admire her for doing it. Once her children are home, her phone is off till they are back in school. So once they close from school and they come home, her phone is off. You can't reach her anymore until the children are back in school, just so that she teaches them the value of timing. Some of us as parents lack time management skills, and our children are copying these behaviors from us. And once you don't know how to manage your time, it's very easy to fall into the trap of substance use. Now, we also have, as a life skill, problem-solving skills. It is important so that it's not because of a problem that you decide to go and use drugs. Now, some of us as parents, we solve the problems of our children too much. Things that they should be able to handle for themselves. They come and cry, mommy, mommy, daddy, daddy, and you are solving a minor problem for an 18-year-old. You are endangering him. You are destroying the life and the future of that man or woman. There are certain issues, problems or challenges, hurdles that face our children. When they come to us, you guide them in solving it. Not that you give them the answer, not that you solve the problem for them. Have an interaction with them, brainstorm with them, let them be the ones to come up with the solutions for that problem. And when they do that, you increase their self-esteem, and that will make, when somebody tells them use drugs to solve one problem, they'll say no, because I know how to solve a problem. We've also talked about what does not work. Fear tactics, scare tactics, frightening information. These things do not work. They do not work. Don't also exaggerate the impacts of drug use. It does not work. Now, we need to understand the telltale signs of drug use. What are the telltale signs of drug use? I used drugs for 7 years until Jesus Christ saved me. So every time I tell my story, I like to tell people that, okay, it wasn't me that saved myself, because I really couldn't. I became a nuisance. I was living in the bunk. Now, the bunk are these filthy places where people go to use drugs and you just live there. And then in the bunk, there was a young girl who got pregnant in the bunk, because when people start using drugs, the ladies now have to sleep around to make money to get the drugs. And she carried her pregnancy to full term in the bunk. And then 2 weeks after she had her baby boy, she had the urge for drugs came. The cravings came so strong, like the waves of an ocean. And she started crying and begging people, please, can I have some drugs? She was begging the dealers, and nobody wanted to give to her, because that's what happens there. You have to go and make the money by whatever means to come back to be able to purchase this thing. And then one of the dealers said to her, okay, if you would sell your baby to us, we'll give you some drugs. Now, this is not a story I was told. I was seated right next to her. And I expected her to vehemently say, no, how would you ask me to sell my baby? When I didn't hear anything from her, I looked at her and I could see from the look on her face, she was actually considering selling her child. And she actually did. She gave her child in exchange for drugs. Such is the ferocity of addiction, which will let you give out what you have. Recently, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was told of a young boy who I think said they are orphans. They had lost both parents. So all he had was his sister. He was not so young, but he had a younger sister. They lived with their grandparents. He had gotten addicted to drugs. And one day he took his own sister, blood sister, only surviving relative in the internal family, to the drug dealer and said, keep my sister. and give me drugs, pending when I come back for her. And then it was even the drug dealers that said, no, this is overboard. So I'm giving you examples of what can happen when a person goes from experimenting to drugs, graduates to addiction, and then finally full-blown dependency. Some people never come back from it. Some people die from it. Earlier this year, Coach Wendy, Auntie Etima, and some of her team, I took them to the bunk so they see firsthand. Whenever I tell stories about the bunk, some people think I'm exaggerating. And in their presence there, I asked of one of my friends, and they say, oh, he died a few months ago. Brilliant young man. You can confirm, for those of you that know Coach Wendy, confirm from her. They told us he died of a drug overdose. I had to go to see his mother. His mother was in tears. She said she didn't know when this thing started. Parents, this does not have to be us. We must be vigilant. We must know the telltale signs before it develops into something we cannot handle anymore. I tell you something for free. The success rate of drug abuse treatment in Nigeria is very low. It is extremely low. It's about 14% of people who actually went to rehabilitation centers and stayed clean. So I'm telling you this, that so you don't think that, okay, if it happens, I'll take them for treatment. You will pay out of your nose. We'll have rehabilitation centers that charge almost ₦1 million a month. You pay for 3 months, and the professionals in that treatment center know that your child will come back after a relapse. So why do we have to go into all of that when you know that if you can prevent it, you wouldn't have to go through that hard turmoil? My mother, who is probably on this program listening to me now, did not understand these things that we're teaching now. And it is brought to you for free. So please take advantage of it. Understand when a child has started shifting from what he used to be and something is happening, and begin to cry out so you can nip it in the bud. I'll give you another story before I wrap up, or maybe 2 stories. Another popular story I tell a lot is the story of a young girl. I was teaching in a teens church one day, and I saw this young girl, and her head was down on the chair of the person in front of her. So I tapped her and I said, young lady, what is the challenge? And when she looked up at me, I saw her eyes, and I could tell that something was very wrong. So, and then she was very rude. So I just told her, okay, just lie down back. We'll talk after the class. Now, all of my training, all of my expertise, all of my experience set in. And I knew that this young girl had a challenge with drug use. So after my teaching, I spoke to the head teacher. I said, there's a problem with that girl, and I need us to help her. I asked her how old she was. She said she's 16. I said, okay, I wouldn't want to talk to her alone. Can we invite her parents? So we have like a brief meeting, and then we can provide the help that I believe she so dearly needs. So the head teacher said, her father is an elder. He's one of the forefront people in this church. You cannot talk to him about his daughter. He will feel embarrassed. I said, no, this is not about him. This is about saving the soul of this young girl. I would like to see them. So she invited them. And then true to her words, the moment I insinuated that I'm suspecting this girl might be into drugs, the father fled up. He got up and wanted to leave the meeting. So I said, no, sir, this is not me spiting you. It will be a disservice to myself, my conscience, and my God if I don't tell you that I suspect something is wrong with your daughter. And I'm always saying that I want us to be able to rule out drug use. So if it's not drug use, we find out what it is, because something is wrong with her. So the mother spoke to him in their language. I don't know what she said. So they sat down back. So they said, okay, what do I suggest? I said, I have a test kit. It's very easy to use. It's like a pregnancy test tube. I want to do a test on her, and it will test for 10 different drugs, and I'll be able to tell for sure if she's using drugs. And if she's not using, I will apologize, and we'll find out what the problem is. I'm almost done, please. I know my time is up. And then we invited this young girl in. And then when she was inside, we started talking, and then she started crying. She was crying so much, and she was in so much pain. And then I said, what is the matter? And she told us that her uncle, this same father, younger brother, who lives with them, had been giving her marijuana for the past 6 months. In fact, more synthetic forms of marijuana, like what they call loud. The primary component is still tetrahydrocannabinol, so it's still marijuana, but laced with certain other chemicals. So she has been using this, and then he had been sexually abusing her. And then to make matters worse, he started giving her a drug called Refnol. So it's a blue pill, popularly called Baba Blue. You see some people when they lick it, their tongue becomes blue. So that drug is a powerful sedative. When the man has his way with her, has carnal knowledge of her, he now gives her the drug to make her forget about what had happened because it will erase your memory up to an hour or two. So he had been doing this consistently for the past 6 months. And then it now got to the point where her WAEC had come. She had to write WAEC. And she was forgetting what she was reading because the effect of this drug was setting in. So that was the problem she was having in church that Sunday that she put her head down. And when I spoke to her, I saw it in her eyes that there was a problem. So the man broke down in tears. So I said, okay, we need to set up an intervention for her. First and foremost, we need to uproot her entirely from that environment. She can't remain there anymore. She needs to go somewhere else where that toxic environment, because that trigger will remain there, that all these atrocities happened in my house. She can't remain there anymore. So we did that for her. But why am I bringing this story up? For 6 months, your daughter was abusing drugs underneath your nose. Your brother was molesting your child and you didn't know. How careless can you be as a parent? How careless can you be as a parent? A lot of people will say, but it's my brother. Why would I suspect that? You must suspect. You must be vigilant. Yes, you must be vigilant. And then you must understand these telltale signs of drug use so that once you start seeing them in your children, you know that there's a challenge. Another story was in 2015. I was still actively using drugs then. And then I came in from Port Harcourt to Abuja. And I went straight to, I called my dealer. The dealer is the person that sells these drugs. And then he said, okay, meet me at Ibro Hotel. So I speed all the way to Ibro Hotel. I don't wait to use the lift because of the urge. I go through the staircase and then I get to the room, the suite he told me to come to. The door is slightly ajar. So I push it a bit and I look in and I see 5 young schoolgirls. They were in their uniform, so I could tell they are schoolgirls. And they were all in low-con, so I could tell they were junior secondary schoolgirls. Now, this is a very popular school in Abuja. If I called the name, every single one of us that lives in Abuja would know the school. So I go back out and I called the guy and I said, where are you? Like you gave me a wrong room number. So he said, what room are you in? I told him, he said, that's the room, come in. I said, no, I can't come in because there are underage girls there. I might be doing drugs, but I haven't, and I will never degenerate to the level of being around underage girls that are scantily dressed. So he came out and I asked him, what are you doing with these girls? And he told me that he had a nephew whom he used to get these girls addicted to drugs in their school. So the nephew will put something in the drink and make them drink it. And when that urge comes in the daytime, these were just 3 students, he would take them to where this man was. He will give them drugs to use, and then he will send them on errands. That is, he will send them to go and make deliveries of drugs to any of his clients. So in his mind, this was his satanic idea of wisdom for his business. Because when a schoolgirl in her school uniform and her backpack is walking on the street or in a taxi, as a law enforcement officer, you will not suspect that he or she, in this case, is carrying drugs. So that is what he was doing. So I looked at him and I looked at him and I looked at him. But I was struggling with addiction myself. I couldn't help them. There was nothing I could do. So I took what I came there to buy. And I told him, I said, hell has a special place for people like you. You better stop what you're doing. So I left. Now, fast forward to 5 years later. We paid a visit to the bank because part of what we do in our foundation is make these visits periodically back to the banks so we can help others to get out. And even if they don't want to get out, we do not judge them. We provide them with basic amenities like sanitary towels, toiletries, food, but not money. Anything that will make their lives more manageable. So we went there on one of such outreaches, and on our way out, Somebody called me, said, sir, excuse me, sir. So I stopped and I turned and I saw a young girl looking very frail. All she had was a singlet and male boxer shorts with no shoes on her feet. So I said, hello, how are you? Now remember, this was 5 years later. So I said, do you need something? Did you not get food? Do you want more portions? Do you want us to call your family? So she said, sir, you don't remember me? Excuse me. So she said, sir, you don't remember me? I said, no, I don't remember you. Please remind me. So she said to me, I was one of the girls that was in the hotel 5 years ago. And then I just burst out in tears because she didn't look like, immediately she said that it made sense. I could picture who she was among those 5 girls. And she looked nothing like she looked that day. And I began to cry. And I asked her what happened. And she told me that shortly after I left, a few months later, they didn't have access to that guy. And then 3 of the girls of the 5 were able to talk to their parents. You see, that's where parenting still comes in. Some of us have become lion of the tribe of our homes, and our parents, our children cannot talk to us. 3 of them went to their parents and said, Dad, Mom, this is what happened. And the parents took them because now they couldn't find that guy anymore, the guy that was giving them the drugs. So when the urge came, they didn't know what to do. 3 of them spoke to their parents. 2 were left. 2 were too scared to talk to their parents. And so they said, okay, this guy used to send us to so place to get drugs, so we can go and make delivery. So why don't we go back there? And when we get there, they will give us drugs. Unknown to these young 14, 15-year-old girls, nobody is going to give you drugs for free in the bank. So they get there and they were told, oh, no, we can't give you this. Don't you have any money? And they said, no. So they said, okay, the only other thing you can exchange for drugs is your body. So they start sleeping with them. One of them was able to stop. Eventually, her parents noticed or something, and they took her. So this girl was now left. So this particular girl that was left was now sleeping around in the bunk. She eventually got HIV. When she got HIV, she now went back to her parents. And the parents said, no, you have failed us. You have disgraced this family. You have brought the name of this family into disrepute. So we can't have you here anymore. Go back to where you're coming from. So she went back to the bunk. And at this time, she was about 18 or 19. So she was used as a slave in the bunk. Imagine a young girl in one of the brightest secondary schools in Abuja turned not just into a domestic slave, to a sex slave in the bunk where she was sent on errands, go and buy beer, go and buy cigarettes, go and buy condoms, go and do this. That was the life she was living. And so I told her that day, and I told my wife, I said, look, I failed this girl 5 years ago because I was using substances. But today, I'm not going to fail her. If it means her sleeping in our home, we're going to take her to our house. And then we took her from there. We started making calls to relevant stakeholders on how we can get her out of that place and put her into a treatment center where she can be catered to. And then by the grace of God, we were able to get her the help she needed. We were able to even meet with her parents and explain to her parents that they failed her. She did not fail them. You parents failed this girl. You parents failed this girl. You parents failed her because you failed to notice the telltale signs. You parents failed because you were not observant. You parents failed because you did not do your due diligence. You parents are the ones that failed and not this young girl. So you might think some of us sit here on our high horses and say our children are embarrassing us because they are smoking or they are drinking or they are using drugs. What did you do to prevent it? What did you do to prevent it? Did you come for this sort of seminar and take notes and go back and practice what you were taught? What did you do to prevent it before you start saying that your children have brought your name to disrepute? So that was the problem. And I told the father, I said, you failed this girl. She did not fail you. You failed her. But that's all story now. To the glory of God, she's in Cardiff in the UK now, doing very well. Of course, she still has to be on medication for her illness, but her life has been totally turned around. She's doing an excellent job in drug abuse prevention over there, and it's such a great testimony. I have so many stories of people who have suffered. 5 people I know died of drug use. Some people I met in the bunk are still there till this very day. That is, I came and met them there using. I left, This is how many years later, and they are still there, not because they enjoy it, but they can't live. This can be prevented by teaching your children relevant life skills that will keep them from using drugs. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. It's been a pleasure speaking to you today. I think if there are any questions to take, I think now would be the time. Thank you very much.
Whew, wow. Oh my God. That was so much to unpack. My God. This, in fact, words fail me right now. I don't know what to say, but wow. Please, if you are here, all right, if you have sat.
Okay, I cannot hear you. I don't know if I'm the only one
Session,
having that problem. I can't hear you.
just do us a favor. Okay, can you hear me? For our audience, please let me know if you can hear me. Can anyone hear me in the audience?
I can't hear you. There's no audio on my end.
Okay. Can you hear me in the audience? Okay, they can hear me. Okay, so Sarah, I guess it might be from your end. Okay, so if you, oh my God, if you have sat through this session, please just do us a favor. I want you to share this video. You are going to be empowering another parent. You are going to be shaping someone's destiny. You are going to be preventing the next catastrophe from happening. Please, I want you to share this video. Share as much as you can. Wow, what can I say? Thank you so much, sir, for sharing with us. Okay, let me add you on this one. Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So I was just asking dear parents online to please share this video as much as they can. I mean, the information we have heard tonight is more than enough to set parents on the right path. I mean, you said so much about prevention, so many things that parents take for granted. I mean, the little things in quotes that look like they don't really matter are the things that are actually springboards, to set children on this path that are not right. Talking about connection, you talked about some parents being the lion of the tribe of their homes. I mean, I don't understand. Please let me use this expression. Who exactly are we forming for? Who are we forming for? Like we are in our own world on your own pedestal, and you expect these children to connect with us. How? It is time for us to leave our own world and enter their world. This is such a wake-up call. Thank you. You can hear me. This is such a wake-up call. I don't know, like I can't even piece my thoughts together. I am really sober right now because you know what Mr. David said? He met some people there in the bunk. He left for over 7 years now. And some people are still there, languishing away. I mean, when you see these people, you know they need help. I mean, please just share this video. And we also need to go back to the drawing board. For those of us that have sat through this session, we need to go back to the drawing board. We need to teach our children self-control, emotional awareness, communication. It's very easy for us to jump in, problem solve for our children, and try to rescue them when they fail, try to bring them out of every valley they find themselves in. But we need to move from that point and get to the point where we're able to groom them. I mean, we want the kind of expectations we actually place on our children are unrealistic most times. We want them to cope through situations. We want them to know better. We want them to do better, but we have not actually taught them coping skills. Mr. David has talked about a lot of coping skills, all right, that are preventive measures. Talking about, not frightening your children because you're talking about the use of drugs, teaching them how to set goals, teaching them how to communicate, teaching them time management, being a proper role model. I mean, some parents still sit and do all of these things, use substances in the presence of their children. Please, we need to go back to the drawing board. The Bible says, in the beginning, it was not so. It was not so. No child, I was saying in the last session, it's very easy to label children. This child is bad. You failed us, this and that, and all of that. But these children came to us on a clean slate. God gave them to us clean and free. But what we do, the kind of environment we expose them to, the kind of things we expose them to would go a long way to determine how they are going to turn out in life. Thank you so much, Mr. David. You have done justice to this topic. How I wish we have more time. You are definitely going to be coming back on our programs. Thank you.
I look forward to that.
People need to hear. I mean, because, oh my God, some parents are still in the bubble right now. They think that, oh, because we go to church, this child was born in church, this child attended Christian schools, the child knows better. How do we explain a child ordering cakes and having drugs inside those cakes? Please, this is a wake-up call. We need to wake up and open our eyes and ears. We need to go back to the basis. We need to go back. I know we are all out there, we want to fulfill purpose and all of that, but we need to pay attention to the children that are under our nose, the change that we so desire, the change that we are looking for. The future that we're talking about, the future is bright, the future is bright. The future is right there in our homes, under your roof. Please, let us do our assignments as God ordained it to be. These children have been laced with so much from God. God has packaged huge assignments in them. Let us not fail God. I said earlier, the change we desire is in these children. The things we want to see, they are in these children. But when we don't raise them right, when we expose them to all sorts of things, when we parent with a lackadaisical attitude, how will they be on the path of purpose discovery? How will they live a purpose-driven life? How will they live their lives with a sense of duty? Please, it is time to wake up and go back and press the reset button. We will not fail God in Jesus' name. We will not fail our children. And this thing is not about calling Jesus or praying and everything. It goes hand in hand. Bishop David Oyedepo said something. Says any faith that makes God 100% responsible is an irresponsible faith. We need to be mindful of the way we also conduct ourselves as parents, because these children are mirroring us. We should not be concerned that they are not listening to us, but be more aware of the fact that they are actually watching us. I pray that God helps us, and I pray that none of our children will find themselves in all of this mess in Jesus' name, and even the children around us. Because, for example, when we have programs like this, it's not just for you to come and sit and listen. Share, invite the people around you, because right now you don't even know who is raising your child's spouse. You don't know who is raising your daughter's husband. You don't know who is raising your son's wife. So we need to spread all of this information far and wide. When it comes to positive parenting, please contribute your own quota by getting the message out there. Thank you so much, sir. I can't appreciate you enough. God bless you and continue to use you as a voice of impact in your generation in Jesus' name. Thank you so much, sir. God bless you. I don't know if you have any question. Do we have any question? Any question? I know that this is a sober moment. Like, there are times where you have questions, but you can't even talk. So I believe you can come back to this video and drop your questions. I'll redirect them to Mr. David, or you can follow him on Instagram at David Folaranmi. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate you deeply.
Thank you.
God
Thank you.
Bye. Give us a final word, just a final word. Oh, he's gone. All right. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I mean, this is a lot. This is a lot. This is a lot. This is going to take us back to the drawing board, and we are going to begin to do things right. Those areas where you have seen your own shortcomings, the areas where I have seen my own shortcomings, let us go back and amend our ways. I mean, that is why we have platforms like this, conferences like this, to reawaken us to the awareness of our primary assignment. Thank you so much for coming. Tomorrow we have 2 sessions. We are going to be having Wendy Ologe talk to us about how to effectively discipline your children in today's world. You don't want to miss that session. And we are also going to be having Dapo Filani. He's going to be talking to us about inside out transformation for parents. Inside out transformation for parents. The sessions begin at 6:30 tomorrow. Please, I want you to make it a date with us, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Please share this video, like this video, and more parents will get to see it. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
There's an outpouring of abundance, New doors have been opened. The land, it is green. A new grace has been released. The glory of the latter is greater than the former. The blessing is here. It's already. Lift up your hands, come on. The glory of the latter is greater than the former. The blessing is here. It's all here. All here. There's another flow.